There are things in this world that we desperately try to write off as coincidences. A strange, rhythmic thumping in the attic. A car that passes your house just a little too slowly 3 nights in a row. A face in a crowded subway station that feels hauntingly familiar, even though you've never met. We tell ourselves we're just tired. We tell ourselves it's just our imagination playing tricks in the dark. But what if your instincts are right? What if the shadow you saw wasn't just a trick of the light? The story I'm about to tell you spanned an entire decade. 10 years of my life lived in total, blissful ignorance until one single, terrifying encounter on the other side of the planet shattered my reality forever. If you're alone right now, I want you to do me a favor. Stop. Look around. Check if your front door is truly locked. And most importantly, make sure your curtains are closed tight. It all started when I was 16, living in a quiet, sleepy suburb where the most exciting thing that ever happened was a stray dog barking at the moon. My father was a workaholic, often staying up until the early hours of the morning in his home office. One Tuesday, around 2:15 a.m., he looked out the window and saw something that made the hair on his arms stand up. A black Chevy Suburban was crawling down our street. It wasn't just driving slowly, it was moving at a walking pace, silent as a ghost. Its headlights were completely off. The vehicle came to a dead stop directly in front of our driveway and just sat there. No one got out, no one turned on a light. For 3 solid hours, that dark mass stayed paralyzed in front of our home. My father watched from behind the blinds, his finger hovering over the phone to call the police. But as the first gray light of dawn touched the horizon, the engine whispered to life, and the car vanished. At the time, we laughed it off. We thought it was a lost driver or a prank. We were so incredibly wrong. 3 years later, I was 19, back home for the summer. I was in my bedroom late at night, lost in my headphones, working on a music track. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a sudden flicker. A harsh, clinical white beam of light cut through the darkness of my room, sweeping slowly across the ceiling. Someone was outside in the street, shining a high-powered, tactical flashlight directly into my second-story window. I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I dropped to the floor and crawled to the edge of the window, peeking through a tiny gap in the blinds. There it was, the same black Suburban, idling silently. The driver's side window was rolled down halfway. I couldn't see a face, only a silhouette, but I felt the weight of his gaze. He wasn't looking at the house in general. He was looking precisely at me. Shortly after that, a strange couple moved into the house 2 doors down. They were quiet, almost invisible, but they were frequently visited by a third man. He was bald, with a heavy, muscular build, and eyebrows so thick and dark they looked painted on. One evening, while walking my dog, I glanced into their kitchen window. The lights inside were off, but the street lamp illuminated the room just enough. He was sitting alone at the wooden table, staring out the glass, directly at me as I passed. He didn't blink, he didn't move, he just watched me with an expression of pure, cold neutrality. That face and those eyes were burned into my memory like a brand. Fast forward 8 years. I had graduated college, started a career, and my family decided to take a long overdue vacation to Paris, France. We were thousands of miles away from our suburban home on a different continent, surrounded by millions of strangers. We were sitting in a small, dimly lit bistro on our first night, toasting to our trip. I happened to glance toward the back of the bar, and the glass nearly slipped from my hand. In a dark corner booth, shadowed by a stone pillar, sat a man, bald, heavy-set, thick, dark eyebrows. He was dressed in a suit that looked too expensive for a tourist, and he was holding a glass of red wine. As our eyes met, he didn't look away in embarrassment. Instead, he slowly raised his glass in a silent toast, a faint, terrifying smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. It was him. The next afternoon, we were at the Eiffel Tower, lost in a sea of thousands of people. I felt that familiar prickle on the back of my neck, the feeling of being hunted. I spun around and scanned the crowd. 50 yards away, leaning against a lamppost, was the man. He wasn't looking at the landmarks. He had a professional DSLR camera with a massive telephoto lens, and he was clicking away, taking burst shots of my mother, my father, and me. When I yelled and pointed him out, he didn't run. He simply stepped behind a group of tourists and vanished into the city like a ghost. The French police took a report, but they found nothing. Now I live with the crushing weight of the truth. This wasn't a series of coincidences. Someone has dedicated 10 years of their life to following me, and to this day, I have no idea why. Every night at exactly 3 a.m., the sounds would begin. Step, creak, step, creak. A rhythmic, heavy pacing from the vacant apartment directly above my head. Someone was walking from the window to the door, back and forth, for hours. I asked Lucy about it the next morning, but she turned deathly pale and snapped at me, claiming it was just the house settling. A week into my stay, while Lucy was out at the grocery store, my curiosity got the better of me. I found a spare set of keys in a kitchen drawer and climbed the creaky stairs to the second floor. I unlocked the heavy oak door and stepped inside. The air was stale and freezing. A thick layer of gray dust covered everything, except for a path in the center of the living room. There, the hardwood floor was worn down, the finish completely gone, forming a perfect polished circle from years of constant pacing. In the corner of the kitchen, I found something that made my blood run cold. A fresh mattress was laid out on the floor. Next to it was a small wooden stool with a plate of half-eaten stew and a glass of water. It wasn't old, it was today's lunch. Lucy wasn't just living with a squatter, she was hosting someone. She was feeding a ghost. That night, I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling. At 3 a.m., the footsteps started again, but this time they didn't stay in the circle. I heard them move toward the apartment door. I heard the door creak open. Then I heard the slow, deliberate thud of someone descending the stairs. I watched the bottom of my bedroom door. A shadow blocked the sliver of light from the hallway. Someone was standing there, their heavy breathing audible through the wood. They stood there for 10 minutes, just waiting, before slowly retreating back upstairs. I left the next morning without saying goodbye. Lucy passed away a year later, and the house was sold and demolished. Whatever secret she was keeping, she took it to her grave. But to this day, whenever I stay in an old building, I find myself staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., waiting for the first creak of a floorboard. We like to think our homes are fortresses. We like to think the world is a logical, safe place. But reality is often much darker than the stories we tell ourselves. The next time you feel a chill or hear a sound you can't explain, don't go looking for the source. Some things are better left in the dark. Good night.